Welcome to School's Out 80s Comedy Story Time.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to School's Out 80s Comedy Story Time. I got a really special guest to us today, coming all the way from Long Island, New York. Jeff Goldberg. Say hello to everybody at School's Out 80s.
Hey, John. Hello, everybody.
Awesome, man. Jeff, so glad to have you on. It's not often that I get a professional stand-up comedian on the show. I've had a few over the last 4 years. Not that many. I think the last one would have been Jeff Gurian from New York City. But man, so awesome. And I spent some time before you and I getting together today for the show, kind of listening to some of your stuff from a few years ago. You are really a good stand-up comedian, in my opinion.
Oh, thanks very much. I appreciate that, John. And I really appreciate you calling me a professional because I'm not quite sure I would give myself that title.
Man, I know professional comedians that don't sound as good as you. I mean, just a personal opinion. I mean, I've gone to shows in Dallas because we got a comedy club not too far from our house, and man, there have been people that would go up there and said, "Hey, before I get started, go ahead and laugh. It's Friday night," and I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm only going to laugh if you're funny, dude. If you're not funny, I am not going to laugh just because it's Friday night.
Yeah, you know what? I think part of the challenge is there's a lot of people attempting to do stand-up who are really, really good at making their pals laugh at a diner. But there's a big difference between making your friends laugh when you're drunk or stoned or something like that, and actually going onto a comedy stage where people are paying and expect to be entertained. There's a big difference. And I appreciate you saying that I'm a professional. I mean, I know a lot of comedians and some people who have been doing this a long, long time. You know, I've only been doing this 4 years, and I think I'm very well aware of where I am in the comedy continuum. I'm certainly not the worst comedian, and I'm certainly not, Jerry Seinfeld or anybody who you really admire. But I do my best to be professional. I'll tell you that.
Awesome. Hey, man, I believe you're professional. So the show is called School's Out 80s, and I realize that like during the 80s, you were probably in the corporate gig at that point. But I like to talk about high school regardless of when somebody went to high school. I think you graduated from high school back when like Led Zeppelin had just like come on the scene. Does that sound right?
They were there a little bit before I graduated. But yes, I can remember being in high school and seeing Led Zeppelin at Madison Square Garden.
Like Led Zeppelin, I think their first album came out in the early 70s. They got together in 69. So I'm just trying to give people an idea of like where you might fit in the whole chronological thing. But too, like, so you're from Chicago originally, and I think they refer to that as Chi-Town. Is that right?
They do.
Okay. I used to do outside sales and technology, and quarterly we used to go to Chi-Town. And I used to stay in downtown Chicago at, I think it was the House of Blues is where I used to stay.
Nice.
Like right next to the House of Blues. Like that's where I ate all my meals. It was really expensive. But I had a hotel, like a really nice hotel right next to the House of Blues in downtown Chi-Town.
Yeah, downtown Chicago is really nice. And I love it personally when people bring me back to Chicago to do my work. Because it's the only place you can get a really good hot dog and also deep dish pizza. I don't know if you ever went to Pizzeria Uno or Pizzeria Due, but man, there's nothing like it. And I've lived in New York a long, long time and consider myself a New Yorker, but I love when clients bring me back and they're always stunned when they say, can we take you out to dinner? What would you like to eat? And I'm like, can we just get a hot dog or some deep dish pizza? Because It's very different here in New York. And I love the pizza here too, but that deep dish with all that cheese dripping, man, that's living.
Absolutely agreed. I'm Italian. I know you're Jewish. It's kind of similar.
Yeah, we
You
both
know,
love our mommies and we both love to eat.
yeah, exactly. And we've both been persecuted. Okay, so your parents ripped you out of Chicago, took you to, I believe, Long Island. Is that right? No, Queens.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
My stepfather, his company was opening up a division in New York. And
Okay.
so they had to move. We moved here, my mom and my stepfather and my sister. They hated it, by the way. Everybody hated it except me. They moved back to Chicago 3 years later, but I stayed because I liked it so much.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I was only like 20 or something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I got very fortunate. One of my best friends' parents allowed me to move into their basement so that I wouldn't have to move back to Chicago.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Like you made friends really quickly.
John, I was very, very fortunate that when I moved here, I met a girl very quickly, and she just happened to be in with the ruling clique in the high school, and so I got in with all the right people and made some very deep friendships. That guy whose parents let me move in, I'm still friends with him to this day, 40 plus years later.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So question. So you're at Van Buren High School, and a lot of times funny stuff happens in the cafeteria. Do you remember any funny stories when you were in high school in the cafeteria?
Jeez.
It's okay if you don't. We can segue to a different time in high school, but does any come to mind?
I actually don't even remember the cafeteria in high school.
Oh, you know,
I'm not sure there was. I know there was one in Chicago because I just recently, somebody sent me a picture of me at the age of probably 16 in the cafeteria at school. Can't remember.
So did you guys leave? Because, back in the day, they used to have open lunch. So did you get to leave the campus and go eat lunch and come back to school?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm jealous. My brother used to get to do that.
Yeah, it was great. I had a good time. Again, I got in with the right people, a really good group of people.
Yeah.
I was a very artsy guy. I was never really a sports guy at all, but,
right.
was into the drama club and choir and things like that. So I just had a great time.
So, okay. So when you're making the dart out of high school and you're hitting, so are you going to somebody's house for lunch? Do you remember, or did you guys hit restaurants? Or
there was a McDonald's a few blocks away, which I can remember going to quite often. So there was a lot of that.
Okay.
I think every now and then we'd bring our lunch and go out and do some illicit stuff at lunchtime, and then come back, obviously eat, and then come back and breeze through the rest of the day.
Okay, yeah, I bet so. Okay, that's hilarious. Yeah, they don't do that in high school anymore. They don't have open lunch. Unfortunately,
no, it's a different world, my friend. It's a different world.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I forgot all about the open lunch thing, but both my brother and sister had open lunch. I'm younger than they are. Okay, so parties in high school. You're in the clique. Where did you guys do your parties at? You're in the New York area, so are you going to like the beach for parties? Or are you going to people's houses for parties? Where are you doing the high school parties?
Both. New York is very big on beaches, especially Long Island. We used to go to the beach quite often. There was a famous place in a town called Long Beach where I now live called Chauncey's. And it was known, first of all, people who have been there, the saying is, if you remember being there, you weren't really there. But you would walk into this bar and then the back of it faced right onto the beach. So you'd pay your admission, you'd have your cocktails, you'd be on the beach. It's a crazy pickup scene. There's also something very nearby called Jones Beach, which is just this huge.
I know exactly about Jones Beach. Yeah, because I was just in Long Island in 2021.
Yep. So we used to go to Field 6 or West End 2, which are just different beaches that are part of Jones Beach. There's also a great outdoor music theater there. But yeah, we would party in people's houses. We go into, there was some nearby woods, parks that we would go and hang out in. We would go to an amusement park. There was an amusement park nearby that we would go to at evenings. And mainly it was just, we were hanging out, just doing whatever.
Right. I'm always interested in the process of putting the party together. Because, back when I did it in the 80s, you kind of had to be MacGyver about it. So when you're putting the party together, so are you going to somebody's house? Is somebody buying a keg? Are you guys like using a false ID to get beer and liquor? You're stealing it from your parents. I want to know, like, how did you guys get from, being underage to being underage drinkers?
Yeah. So typically we were good kids for the most part. And for the most part, our parents, not mine, of course, but some of the other people's parents were like, look, I'd rather have you in our basement doing whatever you're going to do than out on the street getting into trouble. So there were a few parents that were very, very cool that way. And, they'd often supply us with beer, even occasionally a cocktail.
That's awesome.
I had one friend who's, again, still a friend since high school. His room was upstairs on the second floor, and his parents were so cool that if they wanted, I don't want to say his name just in case, but
yeah, all good.
If they wanted Bob, we'll call him, they knew we were up there drinking and doing whatever, his mom would flash the lights in the hallway until we noticed and was like, Bob, your mom wants you. And he'd go downstairs and deal with her. But they knew what was going on. And she actually said to us one time, because I said, why, you know what's going on up there. She goes, I'd rather you guys are doing it up there than be out on the street getting into trouble. And for the most part, we were we weren't the kind of kids that were having trouble with the law. We weren't we weren't arrested and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That came much later, John. But
okay,
it was all very cool. We had, we were the good kids, So our parents.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's funny though. So you're doing this house party thing. The parents are all cool about it. This is very interesting to me because that's how my parents were. Like we had a fully furnished basement in our home growing up, and my brother, who's 4 years older than me, he would have full out keg parties where one of his friends would buy the keg, and we're in Missouri, so you could go to Kansas and buy a keg at 18. So literally that's kind of against the law, taking beer that you buy legally in another state, bringing it over to another state, and then it's kind of underage drinking, really, when you think about it. But anyway, my parents were so cool about it. And this is something I overheard him say one time, is like, we'd much rather have the kids in our basement drinking where we know they are, and we can take their car keys and everything. And then my mom pipes in, and this is so funny. She's like, and my dad's name was Fred. Freddie Sansoni is such a great Italian name. So my mom said to my dad, Fred, I'm so glad that they're doing this. And all they're doing is they're just drinking out of this little juice glass. So they're not even drinking very much beer. And I mean, Jeff, people would get so drunk in my basement growing up that they would run up the stairs, and the stairs were like Wayne's World. Like, I want people to picture this. That's what my basement looked, just like Wayne's World. When I saw Wayne's World, I'm like, that's my basement. But anyway, they would run. They would get to the top of our stairs. They would hit the entryway to our home, and it had one of those, old-fashioned 70s metal bars there. And they would just go boom like that and start vomiting all over our lawn.
Well, John, it's funny you say that because I was at my friend Jay Lutsky's house. I'll never forget this.
Okay.
I got overly drunk, ran up the stairs and tried to make it into the bathroom. And I was so drunk that I opened the door to what I thought was the bathroom and projectile vomited. And it turned out I was vomiting into the linen closet, all over their towels and sheets and everything. And his mom was so cool that the next day he brought me a poem that she wrote for me, which was making fun of me and saying, we still love you. It's all okay. That's how cool the parents were in our group. Because
oh my God. But you know what? That's awesome because I'm sure that like the people you went to high school with and graduated in your clique or whatever probably turned out to be like successful people. Like all the people I hung out with that, weren't completely towing the line, so to speak. They're all like,
lawyers,
CFOs
doctors,
of companies. Yeah, they're lawyers, doctors. Hardly any of my fraternity brothers are homeless.
Yeah. I don't have any homeless old friends either. Yeah. Everybody turned out okay.
which that kind of segues into a funny story. You might have one like this too, but one of my fraternity brothers was convinced that he was in the bathroom, and he opens up his closet and he just pees in his own closet on his own clothes.
Oh boy.
And he was convinced that he was in the bathroom.
I thought I was in the bathroom too, but apparently I wasn't.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so back in the day, you guys are having your shenanigans and parties. So any girls just like drink too much and you guys needed to take them home by car, or any good stories like that that my folks might relate to?
I don't remember anything like that. You know,
Okay.
We were all close friends. It wasn't like we were trying to take advantage of anybody, or we weren't those type of guys or gals. It was.
Oh, no. And I wasn't talking about that so much. Just sometimes you got a friend that's like so passed out, kind of like an Animal House, that you just take them in your car and you get them to their front stoop and you just leave them there for their parents to find them and ring the doorbell and go. Because like, there's no way you can, deal with that.
No, I don't remember anything like that with the girls in our group.
All good. Okay, so like you're right there when Led Zeppelin's out. You went and saw Led Zeppelin. I love talking about concerts. So do you recall, and I know this was years ago, but I'm just curious, did Led Zeppelin have anybody open for him? Do you remember?
I don't think so. Actually, you know what? It's so long ago that I don't remember. Most bands did have an opening band, but usually it was somebody who you didn't want to see and you couldn't wait for him to get off. I mean, I do remember seeing, let's see, the Doobie Brothers and Steely Dan opened up for Loggins and Messina. How's that for a concert?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And not only that, wait a minute, you'll love this. Ed McMahon emceed it.
Really?
Man from the Johnny Carson show introduced him. He got on the stage and he said, this was at Nassau Coliseum, which is a huge arena.
Yeah.
And he said, I've got the Clydesdales parked outside. Here's a band, Steely Dan. And now we're seeing Steely Dan. And then the Doobie Brothers. It's like, oh my God. And then, of course, we were there to see Loggins and Messina. It's great. But I remember seeing Pink Floyd several times. They did not have an opening band, but I saw Pink Floyd play the entire Dark Side of the Moon album, followed by the entire Wish You Were Here album. I mean, that you don't need an opening band for stuff like that.
No, wow, that's pretty cool. Any shenanigans at the concert that you can remember? Any like funny happenings that occurred?
No, just I play guitar, so I was just really into the music.
No, I get it. I'm a huge
people getting into fights around you and people arguing. My big thing was, and I know my oldest daughter argues with me about this. I hate when people stand up at a concert. I paid for a seat, and of course, if everybody's standing up, you got to stand up too. So quite often I'd be the guy. Hey, would you mind sitting down? That caused a few brawls, but nothing really crazy.
Okay, I was just curious. I was at a concert. I think it was The Who. It was in '89. So awesome. And Pete Townsend was so bad off that like he couldn't even play his guitar.
Oh no.
So his arthritis was so bad. So they had a guy backstage that was doing all his guitar licks. I digress. But anyway, that night I'm standing on my chair because we're on the floor or whatever. And maybe I'm standing on my chair, maybe I'm not. I can't remember. But anyway, this girl behind me, I feel a lighter, like on my hand. Like on the back of my hand, I feel a lighter. Like I feel heat. And I'm like, what the hell? And I turn around and she's putting her lighter on my wrist so she can read my watch because it's dark out. And she's burning my hand. And I'm like, you idiot.
Wow.
But, she can't hear me call her an idiot because the concert's going on, right?
Wow. Well, you'll like this. So I saw The Who. I've actually seen them twice in the last 4 years. So 4 years ago, I'm at the Who concert, and there's a woman in the row behind me and maybe over 3 or 4 seats, and she's clearly drunk out of her mind, and she's being loud and she's being obnoxious. And a guy sitting in my row, like 3 seats down, so he's right in front of her. He turns around and says, "Would you mind shutting up?" Well, you know how well that goes with somebody who's drunk. So now the two of them are standing up and screaming at each other, screaming. And
I stood up
during a concert, during the Who concert. And
oh my God.
I stood up and I said, would you two please effing sit down? These guys could die at any minute. This could be the last time we ever see The Who. I want to see the concert. Of course, the entire section all applauded and they sat down and shut up. But yeah, I mean, look,
Wow.
all these bands that you and I grew up with, I mean,
Yeah.
who knows how we're going to see them again? Who knows? They maybe never.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's
like the
kind
Stones
of
were on the Steel Wheelchairs tour. You know, these guys are 80 years old. I saw Townsend and I saw The Who last year. I think either Townsend is 80 and Daltrey is 79 or the other way around. These guys, I mean, they're still in great shape. They're rocking out, but they could go at any minute.
Oh, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's wild. So you're a huge Who fan. I'm a huge Who fan.
Love The Who.
Oh, me too.
Absolutely.
I got a customer of mine that's a doctor in New York, and he is a huge Who fan. Like he loves The Who. Oh,
Yeah.
that's I could do a whole podcast on how much I love The Who, and then we could go through and many people are probably too young to understand any of this, but man, the psychology behind the rock opera Tommy, I could talk about that for 8 hours.
Well, you'll like this. Get this. So my son, who's now 20, he'll be 22 next month, has discovered all the music that you and I grew up with.
Yeah.
And, let's see, not last summer, but the summer before, he was working in a grocery store, as a cashier, and they would play music all day. And he would come home and say, "Hey, I heard this song. Do you know this song?" So one day we're in the car. I'm driving him home. He goes, "Dad, there's this song they keep playing in the store. I don't know the name of it, but maybe you do. They say in it, 'Won't Get Fooled Again.'" I'm like, "Dude, that's the name of the song." Well, of course I know that song. He'll come up with an Eagles song. Have you ever heard of, People You Feeling? Yeah, you think so? Yeah, absolutely. It's so
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I got something that kind of segues off that. So you probably remember in the early 70s when Paul McCartney started the Wings.
Of course, I saw Wings.
Yeah. Okay. So
Never got to see the Beatles, but I saw Wings and I saw Paul solo.
yeah, I've seen Paul solo too. I love seeing Paul solo. But anyway, okay. So they have the song "Band on the Run."
Sure.
Okay. So when I was a kid, they would play that song, and none of us had the album. Like, people don't realize now with streaming music, like you had to make a commitment to an album.
Yeah.
Like I think minimum wage was like anywhere from like $3.35 an hour.
Yeah.
So you had to fork out $7 for an album, a cassette tape, or an 8-track. So that's 2 hours worth of work. Most people would not fork out that much money for albums just because the price barrier. So you'd get them for your birthday, Christmas, or holidays, whatever. But anyway, so Band on the Run. My brother and I would go down the road listening to Paul McCartney sing "Band on the Run," and we thought for sure it was "Man on the Run," M-A-N. Had no idea that it was "Band on the Run," because the way he sings it, he elongates it out so far it doesn't sound like a B. It sounds exactly like "Man on the Run." And then when we both figured out that it was "Band on the Run," we felt like complete idiots.
Well, there's all kinds of songs like that where you think you know the words and it turns out to be something else. I actually I learned to play guitar because I wanted to be in the Beatles. I'm not kidding. I was 10 years old and the Beatles were everything to me. I mean, my sense of humor comes from them. My style, everything comes from the Beatles.
Wow, that's cool.
And I took up guitar and I was convinced at the age of 10 that the Beatles would come to Chicago. John would get sick with the flu or something, and they would be like, "How are we going to put on this show?" And somebody would go, "Hey, there's this 10-year-old kid that knows all our songs," and I was going to get to play with the Beatles. Didn't happen. I'm still waiting, but I think I might be waiting a long time. But I still go to Beatles concerts. I see there's a great band if you love the Beatles called the Fab Faux, F-A-U-X. If you've ever heard of them, do you remember the David Letterman late night show?
Sure.
So you remember Will Lee, the bass player? He had very light white hair. He's into the Fab Faux. And one of the guys who's another band leader from one of the night. These are world-class musicians, and they play it note for note. They're so committed to the music that I've seen them like probably 15, 20 times.
Oh, wow.
They will start a song, be 15 seconds in, and stop it and go, "We made a mistake. We're starting over." Amazing.
Yeah, and the Beatles wouldn't have done that.
No. Well, you couldn't hear the Beatles. I mean,
No, I know, but they would have done
yeah,
that.
there were girls screaming and fainting, but that's why they
Yeah.
stopped touring, and they went into the studio. Thank God, because I mean, I love the old stuff and the newer stuff. All the stuff with Sergeant Pepper and all the psychedelic stuff. Amazing. I mean, they changed the face of music.
So this is a little factoid, since I'm just super knowledgeable about music like yourself. But so do you know where Paul McCartney got the name Sergeant Pepper from?
Oh, damn it! I do know this. Tell me, because I it's not coming to mind.
Okay, I just saw it a few weeks ago on a kind of a rock drama documentary thing on Linda McCartney's life. But anyway, he was in an airplane flying from point A to point B, I think by himself. It was way before he and Linda McCartney ever even knew each other. And somebody was ordering a steak, and they're like, "Can I have salt and pepper?" And he thought, that is a great name for an album. I'll just change it.
That's great. So Salt and Pepper became Sergeant Pepper?
Yes.
Oh, I actually did not know that. That's a great.
No, it gives you chills when you think about it. If you think about any great idea links itself to another idea that everybody's comfortable with. Like, you wonder, like, why am I so comfortable with Sergeant Pepper? Because it sounds like salt and pepper.
That's
like
funny.
You hear that, like it's already in your psychosis or in your psyche, what have you. Psychosis, I think, is bad to say. Like, that means something's wrong with your psyche, right?
Yeah.
So that might mean you're a serial killer. But anyway, but how wild is that he hears that? And the thing is, like, most people would hear something like that and be like, well, that's a good idea, but never do anything about it. And that's what impresses me so much about Paul McCartney.
Well,
have you ever heard about his writing process?
Did you see the documentary? The Peter Jackson did. Get Back.
I did.
Like 9 hours.
That's very eye-opening.
Amazing. I mean, a lot of it is boring because it's just like them sitting there and playing around.
Not for me. I'm a fly on the wall. I feel like I've been catapulted somewhere I should have never been. Like, it's amazing to me to be there for that. It's just like seeing these old Elvis clips when he's backstage, like seeing the Beatles, like, in their element, hanging out with each other, smoking, we'll stay at fags and hanging out with each other is amazing to watch. And
to me, one of the most amazing things is, Paul is sitting there and you watch him write Get Back. I mean, he's just playing around, and all of a sudden it's Get Back. Okay. And it's like, oh my God, he just wrote Get Back. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's figuring it out as he goes along. It's like, oh my God.
I know.
Because all we heard was the finished product back then.
I know. What's really wild about it,
playing on his bass, boom. Crazy.
Yeah. I don't know if this is funny or not, but the way they dissed George Harrison just made me want to cry. Like, they were so mean to George, and George was a genius. Like, he was in another band, he would have been leader of the band. Like, he was so full of music and creativity and expression and you name it, spirit, and they stagnated him in the Beatles, really.
Well, he was overpowered by John and Paul. I mean, they had the bigger personalities, and they look. He left the band. The band broke up, and he comes out with that double album filled with hit after hit after hit. I mean, he has some great. I mean, even some of the stuff that they actually allowed him to do when they were in the Beatles, brilliant stuff. Here Comes the Sun. I mean, come on.
I love everything. Like, Take It Away. I mean, I love George Harrison music. I've been streaming George Harrison music here lately, just all George Harrison music. I love it.
Yeah, great stuff. I could live without Ringo stuff. I love his drumming, but I could live without most of his tunes. There's very few that, like Octopus's Garden. I'm like, I don't care. But I mean, Get By With a Little Help from My Friends. Love that. And he's an underrated drummer.
Well, so have you heard the reason why? I don't know if this is funny either, but it's kind of ironic. But the reason why they wanted Pete Best, like, they say they wanted Pete Best out of the Beatles because he wasn't that good of a drummer.
Right, he sucked.
But the other theory is they wanted him out of the Beatles because the chicks loved Pete Best because he was a good-looking guy, and he was better looking really than either Paul or John, and they were jealous. And so the opportunity to get him out, meant more focus on them.
I've never heard that. I've read a lot of books about the history of the Beatles. I never heard that, but he was not
I
a
heard
good
that
drummer.
I heard that from the Beatles secretary. There's a documentary done by the Beatles secretary, and she said that girls loved Pete Best.
Oh, that's too funny.
Like
he missed out. Could you imagine being Pete Best?
I can't. It's
right.
the worst thing ever to be
How do you
Pete
live with
Best.
that? I was in the Beatles until they got popular.
Well, and if you think about it, another example of Pete Best, though he ended up doing a lot, is the original guitar player for Metallica went to start Megadeth. I can't think of his name right now, but it'll come to me. But he gets kicked out of Metallica because he got drunk and he peed on all their instruments and all their equipment. Or he would have been the guitar. They would have never had the guitar player that they have for Metallica, and we would have never had Megadeth. I don't know why I can't think of his name, but anyway, the guy that's the lead singer and guitar player for Megadeth, he got kicked out of Metallica, like
Wow.
of all things.
Did not know that.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, these stories, like how ironic they are and happen and stuff. Okay, so any dating in high school? Any funny stories while you were dating in high school that you can think of?
Dating stories. Well, it took me a long time to lose my virginity, that's for sure. While other people were doing it at 13 or excuse me, 15 or 16, it took me till 18. And
Okay.
back then, there used to be a thing called a virgin bracelet. It was kind of this leather braided bracelet that everybody knew you were still a virgin. And on my 18th birthday, a young lady who I shall not name, just in case anybody knows her, said, "Is that a virgin bracelet?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, we're taking care of that tonight." And
That's funny and amazing that like people wore those. I guess you got your virgin bracelet and then you got your mood ring.
I never wore those, but yeah, they had those too.
Not everybody's going to know what we're talking about.
Mood rings, troll dolls. There's all kinds of stuff from back then.
Yeah. You got your pet rock, your mood ring, and your virgin bracelet. That sounds like a joke. Like a pet rock, a virgin bracelet.
On that one.
What's that?
I'll have to work on that. I'll put that
Yeah.
into my act.
They walk into a bar and order a drink. Okay. That sounds like a good setup. A virgin bracelet. I can't imagine that. Like I wouldn't have the guts to wear one. Like, but I think it's awesome that like she saw that and she was, how cool is that? Like, okay. Okay. So speaking of dating, blind dates ever like get set up even out of high school? Did you ever get set up on a blind date?
Not back then, but more now. I
so you're getting set up on blind dates now?
Oh, constantly.
How's that going?
Horrible. They never work out and they're almost always weird.
Yeah.
I went on a blind date about 3 months ago, and the woman shows up in the restaurant. I told her I'd meet you in the restaurant. She comes in and she has this huge pocketbook and she puts it on the table and she goes, "Guess what I've got?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I hope not herpes." And she said, "No." I'm like, "Okay, I don't know." She goes, "No, guess what I've got?" I'm like, "I don't know." She goes, "Guess what I've got in my purse?" I'm like, "I don't know. Why don't you tell me?" And she opens her purse. She's got her dog in her purse, a live dog. I mean, she brought her dog on the date into a restaurant. And now here's the thing.
Is she also wearing, hey, Jeff, is she also wearing the dark glasses and a cane?
She was not.
Oh, okay. So she had a little blind date.
She had a little dog in her pocketbook. Yeah, no, she didn't have a cane. And here's the thing. I love dogs. I think dogs are the best thing on the planet. So I had no problem with her bringing them along until she ordered the lobster for herself and a steak for the dog. And I said, "Hey, honey, and not for nothing, but you're feeding that dog a $65 filet mignon." And she goes, "Well, what'd you want me to feed him? The last date we went on, he got sick from the lobster."
Yeah, I don't think many dogs do well with shellfish. That's funny.
Oh, I got blind date story after blind date story. It's hard. The truth is, I hate dating. It's an audition to be in a relationship. And I'd like to have a relationship, but the dating part just sucks.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Wow.
Not into it. I was married for 10 years. I like being alone.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. That's a good story, though. Man, I got a story that kind of parlays off that. So I am on an airplane, and this is after a pretty long weekend with my family, and we're getting ready to take off, and I'm sitting next to this like gorgeous girl. I mean, beautiful girl, and I'm pretty hungover. Like I've been partying 3 days straight. I think I went to a marriage reception that I didn't even know I was going to. Like I just went, and but anyway, I'm just haggard, and I'm not feeling good. I'm doing the breathing exercises, just like, can I make it through this 2-hour flight? But anyway, I'm thinking, God, this is wild. Like how pretty she is. She is gorgeous, blonde hair, just beautiful woman. And she's got this like bag in front of her, kind of like what you're talking about. And she picks it up, and every once in a while starts talking into it and putting it down. And it was really weird. It was like picks it up, puts it back down, picks it up, puts it back down. And dude, I am scared. I am like, I'm sitting next to a beautiful, crazy woman. She might kill me in this airplane. Turns out she had like a little itty bitty like chihuahua in there. I was so relieved when I finally found the dog that the woman wasn't talking to herself inside of a bag. I was still hungover, but I was way relieved when I found out she wasn't crazy.
That's nuts. Too funny.
It was, man. It was absolutely nuts. Another time I was flying, and this woman, you know how they always say, don't talk on your cell phone. Don't talk on your cell phone. Do you know why they say don't talk on your cell phone?
Supposedly the cell phone interferes with the airplane's avionics.
I've heard too that like it can help birds to fly into the jet engines. Have you heard that?
No.
I don't think it's true. But anyway,
I don't think so either.
Whatever they tell you. And I'm I'll just say it, Jeff, I'm anal. Like I am like, if somebody says you're not supposed to do it and it could interfere with me living longer, I don't want people to do it. Like if you're going to interfere with the command controls in the airplane, I don't want you talking on your stupid cell phone. You can wait until you land to talk on your stupid cell phone. Well, we're in the air, and this lady is just like continuing to talk on her cell phone about gibberish, nothing important. And I'm getting upset, kind of like you at the concert.
Yeah.
And so I just like kind of tap on her, tap on the seat in front of me where she's sitting. I don't touch her. I just tap on it, and I'm like, hey, get off your cell phone. I got a pretty low voice. It's pretty commanding. I'm sure that put a little shrill in her. But anyway, I was like, hey, get off your cell phone. You're supposed to be off your cell phone. And she didn't do it. And so I don't know what got into me, but I took like 3 fingers in through like the seats on my end into hers. And I went like that and hit her right into the side. I'm like, get off your cell phone. And she's like, did you just touch me? I'm like, no, honey, I poked you. Touching you is completely different. I poked you. She still didn't get off her cell phone. She's quite an idiot. And so I hit the thing, and I got the flight attendant to get her off her damn cell phone. But anyway,
Crazy.
It's just crazy what people do. Airplane, there's so much comedy in an airplane. Can you think of anything funny that's happened to you in an airplane?
Well, I've certainly had flights where I get on and I get off, and in between is kind of a blur because I'll have ingested something edible.
I see.
Yeah,
so you're doing a little Jimmy Buffett action in the air.
Yeah, especially
Gotcha.
a long trip. Flying to London for business or someplace like that. Like, it's a long flight, so I like to zone out. In fact, I actually listened to an entire history of the Beatles book, the best one I ever read, on on a trip where I was pretty much floating, and I kept falling asleep and waking up and having to go back because I missed half of what was on the audiobook. It was great.
That's funny. So as you land, you're still in the air is kind of what you're saying to us.
Pretty much.
So are you familiar with the last song that Jimmy Buffett wrote before he died?
I'm not sure. What is it? What was it?
It's called My Gummy Just Kicked In. It's kind of relevant. Based on
No,
what you
I don't
just
know.
said. You got to listen to it. You'd get a kick out of it.
The gummy just kicked in. That's funny.
Well, okay. I think we're going to wrap the show for this month, School's Out 80s. This is the time in the show where we promote. I always go to you first, Jeff. Like, tell everybody like what you do. We'll put some links in the show notes so people can get in contact with you. I think you're in competition with me, so I want you to take all my customers. So please tell everybody what you do.
Well, besides being a professional stand-up comedian, in order to pay the mortgage, I am a sales trainer and coach. So I work with both individuals and organizations to help them increase their sales. I teach them how to prospect. I teach them how to sell. I teach sales managers how to manage. So I do corporate training. I have online training programs that people can invest in for themselves so they can learn how to sell and prospect. I have a group coaching community, and I do one-on-one coaching.
That's awesome, man. And that's kind of what I do. So I'll go ahead and promote what I do. I am John the Sales Warrior Sansoni. I've been professionally selling successfully for 34 years. What can I teach you? How to prospect, present, follow up, and most importantly, how to close. I have a 3-day masterclass that includes inspiration, motivation, and the mental tools to succeed in business and sales. My course includes worksheets, audio, video, and can be taken in 30 action blocks. Also included, how to have greater confidence. My course should be $400. If you get it today, $29.95. And included my book for free. Once purchased, you'll get free monthly inspiration from me. Just go to saleswarriorinspire.com and order yours today. That's it. Back to the show.
Wow, that sounds awesome, man. And what a great deal.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, I try to give back. I feel like world's been good to me. I need to give back to the world. So $29.95 is not a lot to get a lot of me.
Spectacular. Mine are more expensive.
I understand. It's all good. It's all good. Hey, man, it's been great to have you on the show, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Is there anything else that like additive you want to share with everybody to close out the show?
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me on, John. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, man.
You're a pleasure to speak with. And I don't want to be all hairy-fairy, but it's about time we start being nicer to each other. Things are out of control here in America, and I don't know what's going to happen in our next election. I don't know which side of the aisle you're on, and I don't care. But we got to get back to the peace and love of the '60s and '70s, and stop hating each other, because it ain't a good way to live. And
No, man.
as I get older and older, and I'm older than dirt at this point, but life is short, and any of us, not just Pete Townsend and Daltrey, we could all go at any moment. So the way I live my life is I choose to be happy almost every minute of every day, because I don't want to walk out at lunchtime and cross the street to a deli to get a sandwich and get hit by a car and have my final waking thought on the earth being, God damn it, I wasted my last morning on earth being pissed off about something stupid. So let's get back to really being who we need to be, and get some of that peace and love of the '60s.
Yeah, I don't even want to picture that, like you being hit by a car with your bagel sandwich in your clutched in your head,
cursing that I wasted my last morning being pissed about somebody who cut me off while I was driving yesterday.
Okay, I'm just kind of intrigued. So if you did get a bagel sandwich, what would you get on it?
Well, what else would you possibly get on a bagel except cream cheese, lox, onions, and tomatoes?
I was thinking you'd go that direction, but I was just curious.
With a name like Goldberg, what else could I have?
I know. It sounds fantastic as you describe that.
It is.
I mean, I've had a lox and cheese, but I don't think I've had like the whole thing with the tomato and the onions.
You need the whole thing, my friend. And
Oh, it sounds
New York,
fantastic.
New York is where you get a good bagel.
Awesome. Yeah, I understand. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close out the show.
Thanks
This
again,
is the
John.
end. We're going to wrap Schools Out 80s Comedy Story Time. So from Long Island, New York, Jeff Goldberg, say goodbye to everybody at Schools Out 80s.
School's out, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
And John Sales Warrior from Dallas, Texas. Cheers, everybody.